Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome. You're listening to Perfectly Healthy and Tone Radio with your host, Darren Fatman McDuffie. And now, prepare to get fat. What's cracking, peeps? Welcome to Perfectly Healthy and Tone Radio. I'm your host, Darren Fatman McDuffie. And tonight we have a great show. I always say that, but I know this is going to be a great show. We have a guest that came back, Dr. Ellen Cutler, and we'll be discussing her book, MicroMiracles. Before we get into that, just wanted to remind you of a really great show. I always say that about all my shows because I like the people that I interview. I spend a lot of time researching people and then getting them on and interviewing them. So I make sure to choose people that I like to work with. But our Monday night show was with Tim Steele. Tim actually lives in Alaska. Really great guy. I really liked interviewing him. And we were talking about his book, The Potato Hack. Resistant starch, gut health, microbiome. We talked about all of that. And one of the great things about potatoes, if you're one of those people out there who is looking to lose weight or shed your weight, we talked about that as well. So again, go back to Monday night show, or if you have not downloaded that through iTunes, I would suggest downloading it through iTunes and looking for The Potato Hack with Tim Steele. Really, really great show. Can't say enough about Tim, his personality, and he's really trying to help a lot of people by putting this potato hack out there and helping people who have a number of health problems. So again, go back to Monday's night show, and that would be The Potato Hack with Tim Steele. Now, tonight's show is, again, I said, a repeat guest. She's back. Really enjoyed interviewing her the first time she came on when I was just starting my show out. The show now is almost 3 years old. I've been doing this since 2013, and it's still growing. But Dr. Ellen Cutler is with us tonight, and I believe that the first show that I ever did with her was called Clearing the Way to Health and Wellness, and we talked a lot about food sensitivity. So if you have not gotten a chance to go back and listen to that show, I would urge you to go back and combine this show with that show, because this show is actually a spinoff of that particular show. So these things will kind of be crossing over as we talk about them tonight. But before I get her on, let me just read her bio real quick. Dr. Ellen Cutler has more than 25 years of clinical experience as a chiropractor and is a pioneer in contemporary natural healing methods, having done extensive studies in many areas including nutrition, enzyme therapy, homeopathy, traditional Chinese medicine, and conventional medical practice. Her books include The Food Allergy Cure, MicroMiracles, which we'll be talking about tonight, and her book, another book, which we already talked about, is Clearing the Way to Health and Wellness. Dr. Cutler has been a speaker at numerous venues, sharing her insights into natural healing. She maintains her busy practice at the Cutler Clinic in the San Francisco Bay Area. Dr. Cutler, welcome to Perfectly Healthy and Tone Radio. How are you?
It's great. I'm great, and it's great to be with you.
Thank you for coming back. We got a little time to talk off the air before getting you on, but we didn't get a chance to talk much. But I just want to express my gratitude for you coming back. I've had the pleasure of going through one of your books and then the second one, and they're really well written, and there's a lot of information in there for the general public if they are actually looking to improve their health status. So again, thank you for coming back on.
Oh, yeah, it's my pleasure. Believe me, it's my pleasure. I'm so happy to offer anything that can help people with their health. That's what I do all day, so it's great to do it to a larger audience at one time.
Yeah, so I know that I listened to the first show that we ever did. I went back earlier today and listened to that show, and I know that you gave a little bit of your bio and how you got into this. But I wanted you to kind of talk a little bit about that again, because actually what you went through was kind of the catalyst for you getting into talking about enzymes. So go back over your bio and how you got started.
Yes. Well, about 30 plus years ago, it's a lot more than 25 now, but but it all started actually when I was a little girl, and it was funny because I had a little girl that came in to see me today with similar complaints that I had. And it's so great that her mother is interested in looking into holistic ways of working with it rather than doing any kind of conventional treatment. And, of course, that was not the case for me. But ever since I had been a little girl, I always had a lot of digestive problems. And even now, there's more that is revealed in what I went through as a little girl. I had some trauma that is going to be another book that I'm writing actually, that probably was the catalyst that caused a lot of the digestive problems. And genetically it was in my family. A lot of my grandparents, they all had, that was their area of weakness, is the gastrointestinal area. So, of course, when you have a lot of stress or trauma, there's sometimes one specific area or sometimes a lot of different areas, but that area was definitely one that was genetically my genetic tendency. So I always had, ever since I remember, trouble with bloating and constipation and cramps, and everything I put in my body and ate just made me worse. And it's at the point where the only food I could eat for months and months when I started my professional training when I got older was like grapes. That's the only thing I can eat. So I did get evaluated, and I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune disease where your body's actually attacking your own intestines like any other autoimmune situation. And any food I eat, I think, kind of mimics that autoaggressive behavior and cause more exacerbation of the symptoms. So I was really, really not doing well. I had lost a lot of weight and fatigued. And now if you know me, you'd say, there's no way you were ever fatigued, but I had all those symptoms. A lot of the symptoms that people come to see me with, that's why I'm so empathetic with people who come in with all sorts of different conditions and symptoms. Anyway, while I was after I graduated from chiropractic school, I did another training in orthopedics, and during that time I met a doctor who saw, and I talked to him professionally, this is what I'm going through. He said, did you ever try a digestive enzyme? And at that time, nobody heard of digestive enzymes. It wasn't on the radar at all. It was completely foreign to anyone. Now it's a household name, but at that time, nobody heard about it. But I was diagnosed as someone who could not break down carbohydrates, sugars, and starches, and the enzyme that I was recommended was one that really digested everything but focused on carbohydrates, because I've been a vegetarian my whole life. Now I'm a raw vegan, but at that time I've always tended toward vegetarianism and went off of it here and there in my life, but vegetarian was the diet for me. And of course it's mostly carbohydrates, So that was my diet, and I had such trouble with it. Anyway, I started a full-spectrum digestive enzyme, and one, again, focused more on breaking down sugars and starches, all the different, even the vegetables. And within 2 weeks, I had no symptoms anymore at all. It was a miracle. And that's why when we tried to find a name for this book, we said MicroMiracles, because that's how I feel. Enzymes are miracles. I always say the most important supplement anyone should ever take is a digestive enzyme. That's the number one, Darren. So then my story went on, but then I looked more into allergies and correcting and treating allergies in a very different holistic way, and where my practice now is evolved into working with people with all kinds of different conditions and working to correct or clear their reactivities. And most people have no idea how many reactivities they have, and it can be anything from an inhalant to mold to foods, even a person or a thought. It is incredible the amount of stress reactivities can put your body through and the chaos that it can cause. So I have a pretty remarkable practice in working and dealing with this, and the results are amazing sometimes. Often, people feel so much better. But everyone always leaves with a digestive enzyme, for sure.
Yeah. I had to giggle as you were talking about grapes, because you were pretty much into grapes for a while. You were actually about to buy a vineyard, I understand,
right,
from the book. So when you talked about grapes, I was sitting here covering my mouth, giggling a little bit, because I remember from the book tell us why you were about to do that.
Well, it's funny because I really did. I mean, it's the only food that I wasn't reacting to for some reason. So I lived on it. I became, I loved grapes. And then I had a patient who had read my book also, Darren, and he was so sweet. I had helped him somewhat with some specific digestive problems and asthma that he was having, and he brought me a grapevine branch because he owned a vineyard here in Napa, because I'm not too far from Napa, which is wine country around here. And he said, Dr. Cutler, I want to give you this because you've helped me so much, and if you plant this, you can grow your own grapes. Anyway, so I didn't have a place that I could do that. Unfortunately, I did give it to someone else. I don't know if it's still doing, but anyway, it was very sweet of him to do that.
Yeah, I had to giggle about that when you were talking about the grapes having for the book. But from what I understand, and from my science background, pharmaceutical background, I understand that our body is already equipped with enzymes. But what happens over time? Why do we tend to lose enzymes? And I'm wondering also, as a second part of that question, are we losing them at a more rapid rate now?
Well, I talk about this quite extensively in all my books because enzymes are a big part of what I do, so it's in every book that I've written. There's the number one reason we are enzyme deficient is we don't chew our food well. People basically inhale their food, and they eat on the go, and they don't take the time they need to chew, which is one thing I am very religious about, is chewing my food really, really well as taking an enzyme. The other things is that, our body produces a certain amount of enzymes. Genetically, we are equipped to do that, everybody. And what happens is that, and you can't replace your own digestive enzymes. What I'm recommending is enzymes that are really actually in raw food, that if we chewed our food well, we probably would have the amount of enzymes, although the caveat to all that is enzymes need cofactors, and our soil is pretty much depleted of a lot of those cofactors, which are many minerals, magnesium especially, and that's why many people are magnesium deficient. So those minerals that are cofactors to make those good enzymes in our body to digest are just not there. So because of that, we're not making the enzymes like we should. So our digestion is not adequate, and we're not digesting the food, and then toxicity and pesticides, and then when you eat foods you're not digesting constantly, you become allergic to it, and all these things lead to enzyme deficiency. But a big part of it, I believe, is not chewing well, and the over-agricultural, our soil's over-agriculturalized too, which also depletes all those good cofactors. So most people, I would say, every once in a while somebody will come in that really is okay, but more often than not, everybody does require a good digestive enzyme. And I always recommend taking it with every meal, although some people say, well, I try to do at least with one meal. And you know what? That's better than not doing it at all. So and for kids, sometimes they don't need to take it with every meal. But, if you're dealing with a chronic health problem, especially any autoimmune problem, you really want to invest in a good digestive enzyme first and foremost as the most important supplement.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about kids, and you covered that. But how much do you chew your food, Dr. Cutler?
I chew my food really well. Well, I'm a raw vegan. So in the morning, I just have some tea and a little green drink. I put a little green drink with some hemp seed, some flaxseed, and take some of my supplements. I don't take a lot of supplements. People take so many supplements. I'm not really a fan of a lot of supplements, and people like that when they come to see me. I think that there are some that are important, but I have a way of testing everybody to see what they need and what they don't need. So I don't take a lot of things, which is great. I really utilize my food well. So at lunch, I have another drink. I don't like to eat during the day where I chew because I do chew my food so well. So like I have a big salad at night. It takes me an hour to eat that salad because I chew it so well. So everybody's finished and I'm still chewing my salad. And it's something I just trained myself to do. And I don't like to go out to eat that much, unfortunately, because people talk, and when they talk and they eat, they don't know, they're not really eating, they're talking, and they're just inhaling their food, and and I watch people when I go to, I watch how people eat so fast. I'm just not like that, So I do everything I say and recommend is what I do. I'm not one of those people that just says something just for the heck of it. I really do chew my food really well.
Oh, I have some work to do because I'm one of those inhalers that you just spoke of.
Yeah.
And
it's and most people are, and look, by taking a digestive enzyme really, really, really helps quite a bit because when a lot of people have what's called leaky gut. I don't know if you've heard of that. I'm sure you have. Intestinal permeability, where the intestines, the small intestines, which has villi that open and close and allow things to go in and out. Unfortunately, sometimes those villi can get scarred. And by doing that, it causes more junctions open than they should, and more things can leak out. So that if you have a leaky gut and you're not taking a digestive enzyme, unfortunately some of that food that's not digested gets into the bloodstream, and that can cause allergic reactions and can cause symptoms of all kinds, because you have the vagus nerve that can cause brain, it can cause headache, cognitive stuff, brain fog, as well as bloating, and you can have autoimmune reactions. So the gut is significantly one of the most important organs and systems of the body to really keep healthy for a healthy wellness forever. So so taking a digestive enzyme makes a big difference.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, just relating to that statement that you just made. I know that leaky gut for most people, and what I've been taught is that that comes from maybe eating grains. I'm gluten intolerant. I have a gluten sensitivity, so I pull that out of my diet. But I'm wondering if deficiency in enzymes can actually contribute to that leaky gut.
Well, no one. I mean, for each person, it's probably a different reason. I don't even think gluten can. If you are celiac, yes, it can cause it. But if you're gluten intolerant, it definitely will cause you to be gluten intolerant. It's one of those foods that, if you do have leaky gut, can definitely cause allergic reactions and create a lot of symptoms too. I think the number one cause of the big one for leaky gut is antibiotics over time, or chemical toxicity. Something like chemotherapy, of course, can really take its toll on the gut. So, if somebody does, and really most people that have chronic, I have found, most people have chronic health problems, tend to have this intestinal permeability. And some people are more genetically, the genetically tendency is to have that as well. There's certain things that happen in the gut. There's been a lot of research in that as well, too. But if you are sensitive to gluten is a problem. It can definitely add to it, and it could irritate it and cause more leaky gut. Yes, absolutely. And some people have amazing changes by removing gluten. And what I do is I'm able to evaluate whether somebody is gluten intolerant, gluten allergic, or just a little sensitive. I can see where, and then I have a way of actually treating people for the gluten sensitivity, so that if they do eat it, they won't have the ramifications that they could have. But people who are really, really bad, I do recommend them just not having it, for sure.
Yeah. I know that enzymes are pretty much the biochemical precursors within the body. Going into, you've worked with many different people. You've been doing this 25, 30 years. Yeah. Is enzyme deficiency the catalyst for a lot of the chronic diseases that we are seeing? You mentioned autoimmunity. You mentioned some different things. So I'm thinking, but I wanted you to elaborate on that.
It's definitely an area that has to be considered. And there are many doctors like me that do focus on that, and I'm always so pleased to see that. And there's more and more books written about the gut and how important it is. And the number one supplement they recommend is enzymes. So yes, it is. I found extremely. I mean, I can recommend enzymes sometimes, and they'll say, "Gee, my sleeping is better," or I don't get bloated anymore. And finally, my constipation is better. Or I double over in gas, etc., and now I don't have it anymore. Or I used to get headaches. So yes, it could definitely be something that is related to many, many chronic health problems for sure. So it's and like I said, most people are not so much vitamin deficiency; they're enzyme deficient for sure.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about those specific conditions like constipation and diarrhea a little bit later. Hopefully I'll remember to do that.
Yeah.
As we age, obviously I'm thinking that we lose enzymes. Without taking enzymes, let's say an enzyme supplement, is there any way we would be able to build our natural enzymes back?
Well, that's a good question. I think most people, I will never say no, but most people when they start digestive enzyme, they pretty much stay on it. You can probably go off it a little bit and you'll probably be all right, but again, if you're not chewing your food really, really well and you're getting, if you're growing your own food, you might be less apt to be enzyme deficient and maybe not need it as much. But again, the soil really have all those cofactors. So I find that, look, I've been doing enzymes longer than probably anybody on earth. I've been taking it for so long. I take it. I will not eat unless I do an enzyme. So it changed my life. And I see it. And I think most people, I stress and educate my patients and the public, even in my books, that you're not taking a drug, and you're not causing something to atrophy. It's different. People say, well, if you take your a thyroid medication, eventually your thyroid's going to atrophy. A certain dose, yes, it will, of course. But enzymes are different. In fact, what happens is that when you take your digestive enzyme, it actually will allow your body to savor the enzymes that you have and use them for what they need to be used for. So, for example, if you're really deficient in digestive enzymes, what happens is other enzymes that are used for repair, for a hormonal balance, for immune system, are borrowed to do the digesting. So your immune system or your body's more inflamed, your immune system is more compromised, So that's the one thing people always report when they start taking digestive enzymes. Wow, I don't get sick anymore. Because their immune system is working optimally, or I don't have as much inflammation because their soft tissues are there's less inflammation in the body. The body's working more in a homeostasis. So that's what it does. So it's very different. You're not taking a medication. You're not taking a pharmaceutical. And I think when people understand that, they say, oh, wow. Now I realize how important it is, because it is very important. I mean, that is interesting that's the number one effect is your immune system is stronger. You just don't get sick anymore. And that goes for autoimmune. That's why I say autoimmune is a huge one for reason why you want to take digestive enzymes.
Yeah, you actually sent me some after the first show that we did. I wanted to thank you for that. I think I said thank you when I got them. Yes. And I've been using them ever since, and I've noticed a big difference. And I'm pretty much religious with them. Anytime I eat, I will take one, and then I eat my food. You mentioned being a raw vegan, and I know that enzymes are already within our food. Does that help us digest the food better?
Enzymes are already in raw food. That's why eating a good amount of raw food is very, very important. I think it should be 75% of the diet. Now everybody's going to be raw like me, and although it's a good detox, if someone wants to do a good detox for a month, doing completely raw is an excellent way. And of course, people lose weight with that as well. Anybody who goes on a raw diet definitely will lose weight, and it's an excellent detox. But yes, eating raw food is so essential. I'm a real I advocate lots of vegetables because I think vegetables are full of complete protein. People forget. Well, they say to me, "Oh my God, Dr. Cutler, how do you get your protein?" I said, vegetables are complete proteins. People always think it has to be animal products or whatever. Vegetables are. Spirulina is a great protein. I do a lot of green drinks. And we don't. If you are digesting your food and digesting your protein and absorbing it, you don't need to worry about getting that protein. It's different if you're a kid, of course, but when you get older, actually there's more danger in a lot of eating this animal protein. There's been a lot of relationships with maybe it related to cancer, definitely heart disease. I'm not a real fan of animal protein. And it's not that I tell everyone to go off it. No, I don't do that. But I do feel that I feel a vegetarian or vegan diet is much, much better and much healthier.
Yeah. Getting into enzymes, my first introduction or baptism, I would say, into enzymes was I read a book a long time ago, and it suggested going on, what's the one within pineapple? The bromelain. Bromelain, and then later on I heard about the papaya, which is papain, I want to say.
Oh, papain. Yes.
Papain. My pronunciation was off, but I'm understanding that there are several different kinds of enzymes. Can you just tell us what type of enzymes are there, and I guess what should you actually be using when you're looking to start, better digestion, when you're looking to just help your body out?
Papaya and pineapple are not full spectrum digestive enzymes. They really just digest protein. So, and we don't just eat protein. We eat a full diet. So you want to get a full spectrum digestive enzyme. So one that digests protein, one that digests fats and sugars. And there's lots of great digestive enzymes out there. I do recommend, and I do have some recommendations of what to look for if you bring my book to a health food store. And look, I tell you what you should look for in a digestive enzyme. I do recommend not not an enzyme that has a whole lot of other stuff in it, just a digestive enzyme. You know, some companies put all kinds of other different things in enzymes to, you know, I don't know why, make it something more, people think in America more is better. So if I can get something with more, more in it is better. No. So bring my book, the MicroMiracles book, and look for something, and there are a lot of good enzymes, and probably in drugstores as well, not just, you don't have to just go to a health food store, although I probably recommend you probably get a better one, maybe a more, more on the level of what I recommend in my book, for sure.
I use a systemic enzyme, and there, you have the digestive enzymes, you have the systemic enzymes, and I was wondering because I came across something in your book. You were saying that systemic enzymes are actually comparable to NSAIDs, and for the audience listening, that's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, which are things like ibuprofen. How is that a systemic enzyme actually comparable to that? I'm very interested in the science behind that.
Well, and one of the enzymes that's been written about quite extensively is an enzyme called protease. Now, protease is an enzyme that digests protein, but when you take it in between meals, it has a lot of other properties. That's why we call it a systemic enzyme blend. And so protease is one of those. And what it does is it will eat up other foreign protein in the bloodstream when you take it in between. So whether it's something like bacteria or a virus, it can, really, so it's a really good immune booster. It also can break down any kind of anything that's forming plaque in the arteries and vessels. So it can help with reducing any kind or preventing atherosclerosis or arteriosclerosis. And so it's a good enzyme to keep the arteries nice and clean. So that's also, and it's really good for fighting infections. So it's something that I recommend that is, again, good for the immune system. And there's been other things that people report. They report sometimes it helps with anxiety, sometimes it helps with sleep. I've seen all of these because breaking down anything that's in the bloodstream that shouldn't be there can be very, very helpful. The only thing about protease sometimes is so many people these days have what's called GERD, which is gastroesophageal reflux disease or any gastritis. And some people are a little sensitive to the protease when they take it, so they might have a little bit of a hard time with it. So if you're going to begin to use something like that, just start out very slowly and see how your body does. Don't take a lot of them. But if you do good, it's something that I do recommend taking. Like I take 2 protease a day, one before I go to sleep, and then one in the morning away from meals. It has to be away from it. Again, if you take it with meals, it's just going to digest your protein. But you could take it if you're having a piece of fruit because there's really no protein in fruit. So if kids sometimes want to do it, they can take it with fruit. Or you can open up and put it in applesauce or something like that. There's a lot of other ones. There's another excellent systemic enzyme called serapeptase, which is also one of these amazing anti-inflammatories too, like you were talking about. So that's another one that is taken in between meals. So those are 2 really, really good ones that, like you said, may for some people help to replace the NSAIDs, which over time can have a real serious harmful effect on the GI system for sure.
Yeah, I used to be on one called PRX. That's one I used to use a lot, and I felt a lot better on that one when I used to use that one. We were talking earlier about vitamins and supplements, and I'm wondering if you're supplementing with enzymes, is that going to make better use of the vitamins and supplements that you're taking? Because a lot of people are taking a bunch of supplements and really not feeling any effect. And I'm wondering if that might be an offshoot of not having enough enzyme capacity.
That's an excellent question. That's what I tell people all the time. So, in fact, some of the supplements that I use are enzyme based, which means that they have, and most of the supplements I use and recommend are all food supplements. They're either herbal extracts or food. No synthetic vitamins. I'm really not a fan of synthetic vitamins or minerals. So in them are enzymes to help your body utilize and absorb those vitamins and minerals. Yes, definitely. And then again, if you're using a digestive enzyme with your foods, you might over time not need those other supplements. They might not be something that you require. Although some people do need some vitamin D, some people do need probiotic also, which is something. Although, if you eat a good amount of vegetables, sometimes you won't need that. It depends. Again, it depends on what your diet is and what you want your diet to be, how good you are with that diet, and how good you are with digesting your food and chewing your food. So it's the whole picture. So before, I try to stress a lot of these things before recommending all kinds of other supplements. Here and there, some people need, of course, thyroid. Some people need some adrenal support. But, our body's not made to take all these supplements. Our body's made to live in, in energetically, very high energy, very balanced. And, some people are feeling worse from the supplements. They don't even know that they're feeling it because they're allergic to it or sensitive to it. And like you said, they're not absorbing it. It could be more toxic than it is helpful for them,
Yeah. You mentioned in the book, I was looking and I saw things like but before I get to that, I'm going to ask this. I know the answer, but there might be someone out there who's listening to this, and there's always somebody who's going to listen to the show, and they're going to say, oh, I'm just going to go out and buy me some enzymes, and then they're going to go to Taco Bell, they're going to go to McDonald's, but they think that they're doing something better, which is better that you are taking enzymes, but how important is it for you to start making dietary changes along with the enzymes?
Look, that's a great question, Darren. I think the most important, I always say the most profound thing we do every day is what we put in our mouth. It's more important than exercise. I think it's the number one thing to really, really, if you're going to change your lifestyle, you got to start with what you put in your mouth, food. Food is really important. Whether you're dealing with weight, whether you're dealing with a chronic health problem, whether you're dealing with a serious health problem, if you're whatever, really, really, there's so many amazing books out there, and there's so many resources now. Diet is important. And, once you start eating well, once you cut that sugar out, you will look at sugar and go, how did I eat all that sugar?
Mm-hmm.
Wonder why I don't have any teeth in my mouth anymore, or wonder why I now have type 2 diabetes, or wonder why I'm so insulin resistant, and wonder why I'm on high blood pressure medication, or I'm on this medication. So much has to do with what we eat. We create our own mess. We are doing it. And if you're, there's so many other ways to help you with food cravings. That's a huge area of what I talk about, and work with people. It's like people crave these foods. A lot of it is emotional. A lot of it is habit. A lot of it is imbalances. A lot of it is not digesting food. And once you really decide, well, this is what I want to do, this is what I need to do, and if you don't care, you don't care. But if you do care and you are sick of being sick all the time, you got to change that diet. It's so important. You got to skip Taco Bell and go to someplace else and get a good salad, vegetables, and it's so important. So going out and getting a good digestive enzyme and eating at these fast food places is really not what I would recommend. It's a good start getting a digestive enzyme, but really the most important thing is the food you're eating.
Yeah, I'd probably break out in hives if I went to Taco Bell, and that used to be my favorite spot. But when I tell people now, I said I haven't been in a Wendy's or Burger King, McDonald's, any of that in 8 or 9 years, and I don't miss it at all. Miss it at all. But we talked a little bit, or you talked rather earlier in the interview about carb intolerance. For those of you who don't know, I'm African American, and one of the things that I found out when I got in my 20s, I could not drink milk anymore.
Right.
And I'm wondering if someone like me who has that lacks that enzyme, lactase enzyme, the ability to convert the milk, is that a telltale sign of carb intolerance?
Say that again. I didn't hear you.
I said, is that a telltale sign because I, lack that enzyme that I might have a carb intolerance when someone can't?
That's a very good question. Yeah, I mean, if you're lactose deficient, you're lactose intolerant, it could be that you're sugar intolerant also. The other sugars too as well. So it's something that's why a good digestive enzyme is really important. And, it's interesting because of all the foods that I find, Darren, that probably is the most intolerant, the most allergic is dairy products for people. And grains is number 2. But most people who come in, if they're dealing with asthma or if they're dealing with chronic fatigue or if they're dealing with gut problems, eczema, acne, dairy products are usually the number one culprit, and they really are difficult to, and so many different kinds of dairy. Now, some people do okay with goat and sheep, some don't, but some do, But most people have dairy problems. So, and most people think, well, it's just lactose. Lactose is one of those, but there are other things in dairy, like the casein, that's probably even more common as an allergen for people. So, but it's somebody with lactose intolerance, it's not surprising that you're probably sugar intolerant, period. And that's why staying away from sugars is good, eating less carbs. Most people do better with very little carbs. I've always been a no grain person forever, for years and years and years. And I haven't eaten grains in 30-something years, ever, And that does not that excludes quinoa is okay for some people. Wild rice, amaranth might be okay, and buckwheat might be okay for some because they really aren't grains, they're more seeds, although some people don't do that well with those either. But rice, so many people eat rice. It's, besides being a very high glycemic food, which means a high amount of sugar, raises the sugar in the body very quickly, which can be dangerous. It's a grain too, and the grains just are inflammatory. And I really, unless you're somebody like that you're an athlete, that's your job, where you're working out 8 hours a day and really working out, you can probably eat a little, although they don't do that great with it either, but probably can eat a little bit more because you burn it so fast. But for most of us, we sit at a desk or whatever, it's not a great food at all. And, all those aches and pains that you're having, although the weight in the middle that you're experiencing, you just can't let go, a lot of it has to do with the grains or some other food sensitivities as well. And dairy is another one there, for sure.
Yeah. You mentioned some things that you could do for the carb intolerance, like lowering your carbs and doing the enzymes. I wasn't aware that people could be intolerant to protein and also intolerant to fats. What would you do in those cases? Obviously, you're going to be using enzymes, but what are there specific enzymes that you're using for protein and fat intolerance?
Well, that's another great question. A full spectrum enzyme, like you mentioned, will digest everything. So it'll digest the protein, digest the fats. It'll have lipase in it, has protease, has peptidase in it, and it has all the sugar digestion. So sometimes a lot of the enzymes don't have all the sugar digestive enzymes, which would be disaccharidase and invertase and sucrase, whatever, that sometimes is not missing. So if you really are sugar intolerant, which probably 80 to 90% of the population is, you want to make sure you find an enzyme that has all those enzymes in it as well as the protein, because it's more often than not the protein and the fat digestion will be in there for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to say this because I didn't want to forget, and I remember talking about this earlier, but let's break down some specific conditions. You've been working with people and how you might use enzymes with them for, let's say, I wanted to just ask you about 3 conditions, and you mentioned one of them earlier, like constipation. What would someone need to do for constipation? I find with my own constipation that water is a big help for me. But what would you maybe work with someone specifically on if they are constantly having symptoms of constipation?
Well, I mean, the work I do, my Ellen Cutler Method, I'm able to evaluate what's going on with the constipation. So sometimes there are a lot of different factors responsible for it. But, in general, it's usually foods and grains and dairy. Sugar. The carbs are probably number one cause of constipation, although some protein can do it as well. But so what depending on what I find, I do my treatments. But I recommend, I always like to start with this first. Let's start with the digestive enzyme, see how that does, okay, rather than pouring a whole bunch of things. And
right.
If that works, beautiful. Because that's what works for me. It's just taking a digestive enzyme. And if that doesn't work, other things that I have used with really great success, I love psyllium. I think psyllium's great. It's not a laxative. It's not an irritant to the body. Magnesium is good too, but magnesium works by irritating the colon. That's what it does. So people need magnesium, but there's about 7 or 8 different ones that I test people on to see which one works for them too. But it's better than not having a bowel movement, so using magnesium. But again, you're not getting to the root of it. So I really, my whole work is what is the root? What's getting to the root of it? Again, why does someone have constipation? Mold, fungus is a huge one. If you are in a house with mold and you're eating foods that are moldy, like dairy, that promote or exacerbate mold, it can be a number one cause of constipation, believe it or not. And sometimes you really have to search your house for mold. Bathroom tile, you got to look carefully, really. So when I find that on someone, I say, you go through your house and see where, and sure enough, sometimes they'll find some mold and they remove it or get it removed. Baking soda is great for it, by the way. And it's like a miracle. Their constipation is better. It's amazing. So there's like anything, like I always say that I don't treat the disease, I treat the person. The constipation for you could be totally different than the constipation for someone else, So it's a symptom of something that's not right. The work that I do is tailored to each individual person, too. And interesting now, I have 2 new things that I'm doing. One of it is I can work with people without having to see them here. I worked with them Skype, which has been a wonderful miracle. So I don't have to have them come out here to see me. And I'm launching a whole new website, which is called rebootingconsciousness.com. I'm going to be doing group clearings or group treatments, not for health, but more for all kinds of other different emotional situations. And so I'm very excited. People can learn more about it on my new website, rebootingconsciousness.com. We're just going to start. We're going to do a beta run. We're just going to do it. We're not going to even charge anyone. So if people are interested, they're welcome to visit. Send us an email. We'll have to include you in it, too. So I'm excited about these new things. But be able to see people via Skype and work with them has been amazing.
Yeah, I'd be interested in that rebooting consciousness. That's kind of like my theme that I've been on about the whole emotional and the emotions being behind the illness that people aren't really getting in tune with. That's been a big part of my reading and studying and researching as of late. So I'd really be interested in doing that.
We're gonna do things like letting go, creating drama in your life, financial stress, all these things we're going to clear. And we're going to have a group clearing. We're going to do one every week, and they're going to do some things at home, and it's not going to be expensive at all. So I'm because I've been doing it a little bit and having some amazing results. So I am so excited about it and doing it with someone else. So you'll enjoy looking at the website, Rebooting Consciousness. It's really, we just kind of completed it, and we're ready to do our first run, so we're very excited about that.
I'll check that out. I really would love to be a part of it. Real quick, because I don't want to keep you over an hour here. Diarrhea. A lot of people have problems with diarrhea. How would you work with someone who has that?
Okay, and again, like I said, I treat the person, not the condition. However, more often than not, you have people with diarrhea, explosive diarrhea. Sometimes it's a parasite, sometimes it's candida, which is yeast. Oftentimes, it's sugar intolerance. And so, as people get older, I've noticed that as you get older, you become much more sugar intolerant. And like you say, you run out of those enzymes, So, and if you're eating sugar, including dairy, whatever, you're going to have it's going to manifest that way. So that's a big one. So it's, and I've had extremely amazing success with both of those, any of the bowel irregularities, but definitely that. But it's often sugar intolerance. And again, sugar's in everything. So that's why the digestive enzyme is so important.
Yeah. And the last one is just heartburn, because a lot of people suffer from heartburn as well. Give us some tips on that.
Yes. Now, this is important. I'm glad you mentioned this, because heartburn or GERD, like I was talking about, or gastritis, some of the enzymes can actually make them worse. So what I recommend is read my book, but what you can do is find an enzyme, and people should remember this, write this down, that does not have protease in it, because protease can make you feel worse. And find one that has DGL, deglycerinized licorice, that's excellent, or marshmallow. Ginger sometimes is really good for people. And there are a lot of enzymes that we have one here, which is called GastroCalm, that we use professionally. And people can always call our office, and we can either send you one or tell you where you can find something that's similar to it. I don't have the exact things on my right now sitting in front of me, but DGL is important, ginger, marshmallow, and aloe vera juice is great. But digestive enzyme is really important, but you want to start with one that does not have protease, because it could make you worse. Eventually you can introduce a full spectrum, but you want to be a little careful. So it can have peptidase in it, but not protease for digesting protein. So that will make a big difference. And staying away from foods that cause heartburn. Chocolate is one that can do it. Calcium supplements can do it. Hormones can do it as well. Spicy foods can do it. Salt sometimes. Gluten can. Grains. These are some foods to look out for, as well as dairy, too. And people love coconut. I know it's a great food, but it can sometimes cause digestive stuff. So just be aware of it, maybe, too.
Yeah. My last question for you is, I've been in this space lately of really paying attention to my energy, really wanting to just keep my mood elevated, vibration high, so to speak. And I'm wondering if being deficient in enzymes, having this poor digestion as a result of that, does that have an effect on our mood? Since obviously they're saying that serotonin is made in our gut, which is our feel-good hormone, which affects the brain, and the gut-brain connection, everybody kind of knows about that. But I'm wondering if that's kind of like that chain that pulls everything. If you're deficient in enzymes, you're not taking enzymes, is that kind of like the chain that pulls everything and starts pulling you down mood? Because a lot of people are having depression problems. A lot of people are just not happy. So I'm wondering if this whole being deficient in enzymes is kind of like that starting point. It's kind of like that alpha that starts everything.
Yes, absolutely. And what I was talking about was this leaky gut, like you have the vagus nerve that will be irritated or cause, and that goes right to the brain. So if there's a gut issue, if there's the gut brain connection, and that's the first thing to look for. Again, we're not deficient in antidepressants. We are look to the gut first. It's so important, and it's not overnight that you're going to feel better. So I'm going to say, people say, well, I took an enzyme and I still have depression 2 days later. It took me 2 weeks, which I think is pretty darn good. It took me 2 weeks and I was a different person. So give it a little time, and it's not, and of course I'm not recommending people go off their medication or anything like that. That's something you have to talk about with your doctor. But it can't hurt to try changing your diet and take a digestive enzyme, because it can really help with moods and energy and feeling good. Absolutely, definitely. And sugar, stop the sugar. Sugar is depressing. And alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant. And I'm not saying people shouldn't drink. Red wine is okay, here and there. I'm not, I do it too. Sometimes on the weekends, very little, But alcohol is a depressant. So if you do drink a lot, it might be something to consider going off of for a little bit too, and seeing how you do.
Yeah.
Because remember, it boils down to sugars. Alcohol.
Yeah, that's a good tip. A lot of people are just finding it hard to be happy, especially if there's a lot of women. It seems like the market for depression medication is really geared towards women. I was looking at an interview today about menopausal women and doctors prescribing depression medication. It's gotten crazy. It's way out of whack with these.
And now they're giving it to children. There's so many children on medication. It's very it's distressing. It's not the direction that I feel is a good direction for our children and for women too, because there is side effects of all these medications. Any medication you put in your body, the liver has to detoxify it. So it's going to put stress on the liver, and you got to remember all that. There's never any drug that doesn't have some deleterious effects on the body. It does. So, before you resort to that, if you feel, talk to your doctor about doing, bring in a book and say, look, this book says this. I want to try this first,
Yeah, I would recommend that. A lot of people are scared to talk to their doctor, and I've always told people, always ask me for advice, and I said, if your doctor's not open to listen to what you have to say, then find another doctor. That's just the bare bones about it. You just find you another doctor, someone who will listen to you, because you are an advocate of your own health care. But Dr. Cutler, I love interviewing you. I never keep my guests no more than an hour, because I know time is valuable, and I want you to have a life, because I want one. So,
that's great.
I like having you on, and you mentioned being able to do your Skype consultations. I don't know if you do that by your website, if you want to give everybody your website or
Yeah. My website is, and the Rebooting Consciousness is the new one, and the other one is drellencutler.com, and I have all my information on there, and I totally love doing this. It really made my day, and I think you're a great advocate and a great interviewer, and call me again. I'm always happy to come on and talk.
Okay. Thank you so much. Enjoy. You are, 3 hours behind, so it's evening for you. It's almost bedtime for me. But
yeah, that's right. I'm ready to leave my office.
Yeah, enjoy your day, and thanks so much for your time.
Okay, thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. There you have it, another great interview about enzymes, and I tried to get in for you there just things that you might be experiencing, because I know before I started really wanting to work on my digestion, there were some things that I was experiencing, mainly constipation. And like I said, water was one of those key ingredients for me. I just wasn't drinking enough water living down here in South Florida, and have kind of ramped up my hydration, and that's helped out a lot. Trying to think of what's coming up. I think next week we only have one show, and that show will be called with the Parasite Minutes with Dr. Sky. We'll be talking about parasites. It's another thing, a big thing with a lot of people who have parasites and may not know that they have it. And then I think Friday I'm doing a bonus show. I'm going to do a bonus show with another previous guest, and also I used to co-host another podcast with this individual, Diane Kaiser. She has a summit that's coming up called Heart to Happiness, I think is the name of her summit. So we're going to do a show Friday, and I have that show up probably late afternoon Friday, just talking about what we talked about in the end of this show, about people who aren't happy. There's a lot of people out there who aren't happy, going through a lot of things, and it's pulling their mood down. And one of the things that I think that's really paramount for a lot of individuals is getting to that place where you can be happy, because a lot of what we're experiencing with our emotions, with weight gain, with the drama in our lives, is because we aren't happy. We're attracting the wrong thing. So we'll be talking a little bit about what happened with her when she was interviewing all of these professionals, talking to them about that goal of happiness and how it transformed her. So again, that'll be up late Friday afternoon. We're going to do the interview early afternoon. So again, that'll be up. So thanks for listening. I will see you again Friday, same fat time, same fat channel. Well, actually not same fat time, same fat channel. It'll be a little bit earlier. But again, thanks for listening. Peace and love, y'all. Good night.